A few weeks ago, I was asked by ISACA to give a talk on IS risks in ERP systems. So what, you may ask? Why are ERP systems important? The reality is that most organizations and businesses use an ERP system these days, and that 85% of CIOs believe it's a fundamental part of their business. So what about the IS risks? Well, here are two examples of what can go wrong. So what is an ERP system? I was lucky enough to work for an organization which hadn't implemented ERP systems fully across the board. This was in the late 1980s. So what is different? Well, the key difference is business interdependencies. And with that, what I mean is that one function depends on the other, and you need to work together. A very simple example is where data is shared. For example, material master data. When the warehouse receives its goods, if the finance function hasn't managed to update the financial records, it means that although the goods may be received in the logistics module of your ERP system, the actual accounting bit is not going to post correctly. Possibly there will be an error depending on how the ERP system is set up, and you can't even receive the goods. So what is IS risk? We have talked about what an ERP system is. So when I talk about risk, I tend to use the example of a car, because when you talk about risk, for me you can't really ignore the concept of control. And the key element that I would like to mention here, or the message I would want to convey, is that the reason why you have controls in the example of a car is that you can drive much faster and much safer with the controls in place. And that's true for any business as well. So if you get the right balance between risk and control, controls are not a hindrance. And that's also a good way of explaining controls to perhaps more commercially minded people who would think controls is all about red tape. No, control is not about red tape. Controls is about making the organization more effective, deliver faster, and possibly more profitable if you're a profit organization. It can work. Now, I used to take COSO, which is one of probably the most well-known control frameworks, to business people and try to explain to them what controls and risks were all about. And the reality is that for most of those people, they couldn't give a monkey about what COSO was, because it didn't really matter to them. So it wasn't a great way to introduce the concept of risk and controls. But actually, conceptually, it was quite difficult to explain as well. So what I did is take all the components of COSO and rejig it into something which is much more logical to any business owner or someone who runs a non-profit organization. Now, I've colored a few things green. And this is where I think your ERP system touches your business. Now, as you can see, it touches pretty much everywhere. Management, when they're confronted with figures they really should challenge, they sometimes just, it's too good to be true. So hopefully a good start helps you further along the line. And then in theory, what you would get is the most mature state. People understand the system, process, risk and controls again. And if you come in as an auditor, they could probably lecture you on what risk and controls are in great detail. So back to the picture I shown before, and again the business process, but now there are a couple of bars have a yellow or amber color. So what's missing from my perspective? And I think these are the key things. So the question I raised to the floor is the biggest risk of an ERP system the lack of an enterprise governance and risk and compliance system, so an e-GRC system? And are you actually explaining enough as an auditor, whether it's internal or external, is that controls are not red tape, controls are an enabler to deliver better and quicker results. And as a result, investing in a e-GRC system is probably one of the biggest opportunities, so therefore the biggest IS risk there is around the ERP system. So there you go, that's my challenge to everyone out there who's either part of the finance function or an audit function